"I was led to believe that this world was an evil place." Those are the exact words that came out of Ruby Franke's mouth after she was sentenced to serve up to 60 years for child abuse.
I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure.
The YouTube mom 8 passengers just broke down in tears as a judge just ordered her to serve up to 6 years for child abuse. And although she's sobbing at her sentencing, it seems like she hasn't really learned her lesson, as she's blaming the child abuse on being deceived into thinking the world was evil. Yeah, you guys tell me if you think this is really Ruby taking accountability.
It is important to me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices.
In late August, Ruby and Jodi were arrested on charges of aggravated child abuse related to Ruby's children. The arrest stemmed from an incident in which one of her emaciated children, who was discovered with duct tape on his legs, escaped through a window from Jodi's home and sought help at a neighbor's house. In a subsequent police statement, Ruby acknowledged abusing both her son and daughter by withholding food and water from them, submerging her son's head underwater as a form of punishment, isolating them physically, and compelling her daughter to walk barefoot outside in the heat. Ruby also conceded to subjecting her kids to starvation. I mean, officials themselves described the neglect and malnourishment of her son as severe, necessitating an immediate visit to St. George Regional Hospital for treatment. And Ruby would further restrain her son by tying a rope between the handcuffs she would cuff him with so that his arms and lower legs were lifted off the ground. Yeah. Initially, both Ruby and Jodi faced 6 charges of child abuse, but 2 of those counts were dropped as part of the plea agreements. And fast forward to a couple months, just yesterday on Tuesday, both Ruby and Jodi were sentenced to 4 terms of 1 to 15 years in prison. These terms are consecutive, so that means they will both serve between 4 to 60 years total. Now, I have to say that is a pretty broad range, but the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole will ultimately determine the exact duration Ruby and Jodi will spend in prison, but as of right now, we know she's serving at least 4 years in prison. Now, although it's reported that Ruby will have a 30-day period to appeal the decision, she did have a statement in court alongside Jodi, and she said, "I'm humbled and I'm willing to serve a prison sentence for as long as I need, and I am committed to unlearning my toxic behavior."
For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. My distorted version of reality went largely unchecked, as I would isolate from anyone who challenged me. I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need abuse. My choice to believe and behave this paranoia culminated in criminal activity for which I stand before you today ready to take accountability. Jodi Hildebrandt was never my business partner, nor was I ever employed by her. Jodi was employed as my son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020 I paid her to be my mentor. It is important to me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices, and it is my preference that I'll serve a prison sentence.
After the judge imposed the maximum sentence according to Utah state guidelines, Ruby additionally expressed regret for, quote, twisting God's words and distorting his doctrine. Can we all agree that she loves the word distort? If you know from watching her Connections videos, you know how often she would use that word. And to some people, it seemed like Ruby was trying to put most of the blame on Jodi throughout her statement. But people have been pointing out how Ruby's behavior was distorted, as she loves using that word, even before she met Jodi. People noticed this all throughout her YouTube videos from her 8 Passengers channel from years ago. Her parenting practices in general were incredibly worrying from the jump. And the fact that she's trying to make it seem like all of this happened and unfolded when she met Jodi is just not it. I just feel like she has no choice at this point, and all she really can do is try to show some remorse or act like she feels regretful, but no one is really buying into the statements that Jodi and Ruby both made in court. It was then Jodi's turn to speak regarding her sentencing, and one of the things she said was, "I sincerely loved these children. One of the reasons I didn't go to trial is because I didn't want them to relive this." Sure, that's very believable.
State of Utah versus Hildebrandt. Case 231501763. Counsel are present. Ms. Hildebrandt is present.
Ms. Hildebrandt committed awful acts of child. They each believed to some degree that they deserved what was being done to them.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them. My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives. I am willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make retribution as an outcome.
What's very interesting to note when it came to Jodi's statement in court was that the judge himself said that Jodi showed little to no remorse after she got arrested, and that she was putting herself out to be the victim and the children to be the perpetrators, which is sick. I mean, how delusional does one have to be to just think like that? Nobody forgot about the stuff that came out in the document of what these two women did to those children. They were so cruel, so graphic, it just hurts to even read that. So I can't imagine how terrifying this experience has been for the children and how much it's going to traumatize them in the long haul.
After being caught, Ms. Hildebrandt has shown little to no remorse for her actions. In telephone conversations that will be provided in full to the Board of Pardons and Parole, and which she knew to be recorded, she's repeatedly claimed that she is the victim and the children are the perpetrators. She has gone so far as to say that the things said in this proceeding and covered by the media today will be full of lies.
Now, regarding Ruby's husband, Kevin Franke, and why he hasn't been charged, people haven't been turning a blind eye to that either. Some have been saying that he has been complicit throughout all of this, saying that he had to have known some of the things that were going on behind the scenes. What they want to hear from Kevin ultimately is some acknowledgement of his part in the years of Ruby's abuse. I literally don't know how the dad got away with no charges. The dad deserves prison time for neglect. He literally let it happen. The husband should be charged with something. He definitely allowed this. Kevin's attorney released a statement on his behalf before Ruby's sentencing, which happened on Tuesday, but the statement reads, "We trust the judge to sentence them both to 1 to 15 years for each of the 4 counts to run consecutively, and then let the Utah State Board of Pardons decide if that should be shortened or other conditions imposed. The treatment these children received at the hands of those whom the children had a right to trust was horrific and inhumane, both physically and psychologically. Kevin remains focused on the rehabilitation of these sweet and vulnerable children so that they might return to a normal life as soon as possible." Now, it's not necessarily clear whether this means that Kevin is going to have custody over the children here on out. I guess we'll have to see in due time, but people aren't really siding with Kevin in this situation, that's for sure, because people just think he was part of everything that was going on behind the scenes. And we also have to keep in mind that had it not been for Ruby's son escaping and finally making the decision to seek help, how much worse would have these kids been through? It's just so scary, and the whole situation is sad all around. I mean, it clearly was already worse enough that Ruby's 11, 12-year-old son had to escape himself out of fear of the condition he was in, running towards a neighbor for help. That just screams a lot. Now, on a bit more of a lighthearted note, the older son of Ruby Franke has made a lighthearted comment about his mother's jail sentence, it seems. Honestly, this is still very sad knowing that Chad is having to go through all of this publicly. I mean, I can't imagine how hard this has been on him, dealing with the reality of his mom, and then also dealing with all of this information being aired out publicly to millions and millions of people. It just has to be so much pressure on him. But Chad made his first post back after a long while, and he shared to his Instagram a video with his girlfriend attempting to find humor in his mom being in jail. They made this video in the car, and the girlfriend was just basically directing Chad to come meet her mom, and then Chad, on the other hand, was just like, "Oh, my mom, she's in prison, which is sad. Anyways, guys, this has been the update on Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt and their sentencing. We're gonna have to wait and see for the exact sentencing, but as of right now, that's what's been going on. I definitely want to know your thoughts on the whole situation up until now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I love you guys so much, and as always, I'll see y'all in the next video.